Well, the Lightning fell flat in their second game of their road trip, but I'm still treating this as a win. We talk about last night's loss alongside Nikita Kucherov and Brayden Point, still playing out of their minds. We talk about all of that more, but first, let's play that music.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I just want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're talking today about last night's loss to the Minnesota Wild, 5-1 on the road of the second leg of their third game, three-game road trip. We're also talking about Brayden Point and Nikita Kucherov. So let's talk about those two guys to start things off. Now, Brayden Point and Nikita Kucherov, who I firmly believe we have been seeing just another level of play. When I say another level of play, I mean a level of play that the rest of the NHL might think is another level of play, where to us, we're looking at this as just another, maybe these performances as just another day, another season of these guys playing and proving why they're great players. But one might think that, but at the same time, you look at their stats this season compared to last season, even how they've been playing over the last month, and even with Kucherov dating back to Thanksgiving, these guys have been playing great. Now, to put it in perspective, even in losses, we still see a ton of production from these guys. Now, Kucherov, since Thanksgiving, 18 games played, 3 goals, but on the other side of that, 26 points total. So that brings you out to 23 assists. And I have to say, I am overly impressed, but also at the same time conflicted, because if you know anything about me in this show, and if you haven't already, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the pod. I feel like this team is so much better when Kucherov is shooting the puck, when he's actively involved in the offensive attack. And what I mean is when he is really being aggressive, when he is tallying off, ripping off five shots a game, really taking the puck in deep. This year, we haven't been seeing a lot of that. I mean, we've seen little short bursts, but what we've seen from Kucherov is he's really passing the puck off almost to a certain degree prematurely. And listen, I'm not going to complain about it. I mean, I can complain about it, but at the same time, it's working. He's making the players around him better. And to show you how big of an impact he has, out of those 23 assists that he has since Thanksgiving, and if you're not sure what game that is, that's the St. Louis game, 14 of those are even strength assists. So that shows you that not only is he making guys better on the power play, but he is also having just as good of an effect on the even strength, which is a huge deal. I feel like the Lightning go through these stretches not only when they can't score on the power play, but the roles are reversed, where they could only score on the power play and they can't score on 5-on-5. But when you have someone who is really as gifted as Kuch, being able to set up his teammates, and we saw last night and the last last couple of games as well, how well he is, or just how good his ability is of threading the needle, passing it through traffic on really, if you really want to think about it, not many players in the NHL can make these passes consistently, and he does it about 2 to 3 times a night. So that shows you what other level he's on. And to kind of get you a little bit of a sense of where he is as opposed to next year and how well he's playing. Now, he's 10 games away from his games played total from last year. As we all know, he was hurt last year for quite a bit. Had 47 games played and then 37 so far this year. 25 goals last season, 13 goals this year, 44 assists. Last year and 41 this year. So that brings his point total to 54 on the season, which is only 15 behind of what he got last year. Now, if we could see him play a full season or at least get close to 80 games, I think he has a very good chance at this rate to really get to that 100-point mark. But I really think, and I've been talking about this over the past month, and you're starting to see it with the players and their numbers because sometimes it doesn't always reflect. But when guys like Nikita Kucherov and Brayden Point, who we will talk about in the second segment, when these guys are rolling on all cylinders, it really makes a world of difference for the rest of the team. Now, obviously, that didn't really translate well into last night's game against the Wild. They lost by 4 goals, which really I kind of warned everybody about this game on the previous episode because this was just a classic example of the Lightning starting out slow and the Wild coming out with a head full of steam. And then something a little bit different though happened in this game. It was the fact that the Wild kept coming out and throwing punches, and where the Lightning, even though it didn't reflect in the goal department, still were chipping away at the momentum that the Wild were bringing. And it resulted in a power play goal from Brayden Point, a fantastic passing play from Cooch to Hagel to Point. Another fine example of Nikita Kucherov coming up big and really helping his team out when they need it most. But I'm not going to put the whole blame on him. Everybody has their bad nights, but really what it came down to last night was Brian Elliott playing for a sick Andre Vasilevsky. Just didn't have his best stuff last night. And really, we've spoken so much about how well Brian Elliott has played this entire season. And so, even for a backup goaltender, he has played marvelous. He's through 11 games played, he's 8-3, 8-3. So with a goals against average of 3.17, save percentage of 8.97. Now that those numbers are a little, may not be pleasing to the eye just because of him not playing as many games. He's playing 11. He's only played 11 games this year. I think if he was playing more, I think those numbers would look a lot better. But for a backup goaltender, and he made some great saves last night. He really, there were situations where this game could have gotten very, very ugly for him. But like I said, I still think he played well. I still think he made a lot of good saves. He really gave the Lightning more than enough opportunities to stay in this game, and the Lightning did, just because it was a 4-goal deficit when the final buzzer rang, doesn't mean it was a bad game played. And like I said, you saw a good performance from Elliott and net. You also saw good things from Nikita Kucherov throughout this game as well, setting his teammates up. Most notably that pass to Nick Pervix, who on the rush, who just couldn't just get it home. He couldn't just send it home in front of his family there in attendance. So I'm sure as time goes on, Pervix is going to figure out how to bury those pucks. But really happy with the way this team played overall, regardless of the loss. and even with Brayden Point last time, obviously picking up another goal. It seems like every time we record an episode, Brayden Point's coming off and scoring another goal and another goal and another goal. So he's a goal scoring machine right now. So we'll talk about him in the second segment and why I think 100% now, if it hasn't been already, because I haven't heard anything from the main media, from the NHL media, I firmly believe that we need to start having the conversation about Brayden Point being in the Hart Trophy conversation. So we'll talk about that in just a bit. But first, I want to remind you that today's episode of Locked On Lightning is brought to you by BetOnline.net. Now, BetOnline.net is your number one source for your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the NHL. They've got it all at BetOnline.net. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. So once again, I want to thank everybody for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. So I really think now, because I feel like it's borderline blasphemous at this point to not have the discussion, at least for Brayden Point being in the Hart Trophy conversation. And some of you or some Lightning fans may think that is absolutely ridiculous, that I might be somewhat delusional, but really, I mean, in this situation, when you look at what Brayden Point's done, because I don't want anybody sitting there and telling me it's all about stats, stats, stats. Yeah, at the end of the year, it may look that way. Things even out that way as it goes, as things unfold over the course of the season. But really, what it comes down to, I mean, Brayden Point, and I might be a little biased here, but at the same time, I think my bias is completely legit. When you look at what Brayden Point has done this year and you compare that to other teams and where the best players on those teams who are producing, where those players currently are at and where their teams are at, I want you to name a player in the NHL who has consistently on a nightly basis come out, produce pretty much almost to a fault, carried the team on his back at times, and really done a good job of not only, because you'll have players out there who, and prime example is Connor McDavid in years past, putting up crazy numbers, and the Oilers still don't win the division. Now, this year, I firmly believe, one can make the argument, if Brayden Point isn't playing the way he's playing or he was hurt, I think the conversation could be had that the Lightning aren't as close to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They don't go 10-3 in December without Brayden Point's performance. They certainly aren't as ahead as they are in the standings ahead of Detroit. So I really think that, and I already know, just because I know how the NHL voting works right now. I know what was going to happen. At the end of the year, unfortunately, unless Point just goes absolutely to another level of play, which it's very possible. I wouldn't not be surprised if Point is actually in the top 5 in goals scored at the end of the season, because I don't think he's going to get up there in points. I just think that he is really more of a goal scorer at this point in his career. If anybody has a chance to be in the top 5 in points at the end of the season, I think it's probably Kucherov. He's going to have to maybe score a couple more goals here and there as the season goes along. But Brayden Point, I think, really, if he's going to really kind of put his stamp on the Hart Trophy conversation, which I highly doubt is even on his mind right now, I think that he needs to continue this play. I think he maybe maybe get a couple of 2-goal games here, maybe a hat trick here and there. Right now, since the beginning of December, and this shows how big of an effect. Like I said, the Lightning went 10-3 throughout that span. Just snapped a 5-game winning streak throughout since the beginning of December. Brayden Point, 15 games, 15 points, 12 goals, 2 power play goals, 4 game winning goals, 2 even strength goals, and 1 power play assist. 10 of those are even strength goals, sorry, and 2 of those are even strength assists. So he is having an immense effect on this team's long-term and current success right now. And I think it's time that the NHL completely buys into that, because I feel like every year we're having this conversation with Brayden Point that, oh, he's right on the edge. He's one of the rising stars. He's right on the outside looking in terms of being the next big thing. Listen, he is one of the big things now. And he's shown it through his recent style of play, his recent level of play. And I think for anyone else to suggest otherwise, that he is not at least in the top 5, or I think right now top 3, because really when you look at these players that, whether you want to look at goals as just a measuring stick, if you want to look at points as a measuring stick, that's fine. But you can't sit there and tell me that Brayden Point is not having a better season than Bo Horvat, or than Mark Scheifele, or Jack Hughes, or Cole Caulfield, or one of last night's goal scorers, Kirill Kaprizov. Brayden Point means more to their team, more to the Tampa Bay Lightning, than those players that I just said. And even if you look at some of these other players that I've listed, Brayden Point means more to this Lightning team than Erik Karlsson means to the San Jose Sharks. Listen, the Sharks aren't going nowhere this year. Brayden Point could be the make or break between losing in the second or third round or winning a Stanley Cup. We could have this conversation all day. I think at the end of the day, Brayden Point means more to the Tampa Bay Lightning than Ryan Nugent-Hopkins does to the Edmonton Oilers. I think he means more to his team than Elias Pettersson means to the Vancouver Canucks. Aren't you seeing the theme here? Even with Tage Thompson with the Buffalo Sabres, who has had a phenomenal year, one of the up-and-coming stars. He is one of the up-and-coming stars, not Brayden Point. All the players that I'm listing right now, that I'm talking about right now, and maybe some people will feel the same way about Jason Robertson and the Dallas Stars. At the end of the year, and I know the Hart Trophy is a measurement of what you mean to your team in the regular season, but at the end of the day, we could make the case that Tage Thompson, his 55 points right now for the Buffalo Sabres can very well just mean the difference between them being in 5th and in last place in this division. Jason Robertson's 26 goals could be the difference between the Dallas Stars being in the top of their division or being 3rd. Now, we also have to consider that also Colorado is in that division, and they have a slew of injuries going on right there. So there's a ton of variables in play, but at the end of the day, nobody has had a bigger effect on their team's current success than Brayden Point has. So 100% Brayden Point, without a doubt, belongs in the top 3 conversation right now as we are talking on January 5th, as one of the best players in the NHL and in the Hart Trophy conversation. So wrapping things up on the show now, the Lightning, just as quickly as I predicted that they were going to get their win streak to double digits, it ended in the flash of an eye. But like I said, I have been really happy with the way that they have played over the course of, we could even, I said December was a big month for them. We could even go back to after Thanksgiving, that Blues game as a measuring stick. I think that's really when things went to another level. Not that the Lightning weren't playing well going into Thanksgiving. I think they were kind of I think, they found their footing after the Washington game, when they were playing those back-to-back games against them, and they won 6-3 in Tampa, and then they rattled off 4 straight after that. I mean, 3 straight after that, and then I think that they had a little bit of a reality check against Boston, on that Monday night right before Thanksgiving, and I think having those couple of days off, as much as I really don't like Tampa Bay having those many days off, because I feel like they're a team that really thrives on the consistency of the schedule and being some sort of routine. We saw how much success they had last year with, or in the excuse me, in the shortened season where um, they were playing every other day. Now, I think that that game, that Friday game on the 25th against the Blues, really gave them a lot to look at, what how they performed in that game, and they said, "Huh, now we know that this works. Now we don't know that that works." And we saw that through their fantastic month of December, and we saw that in the game against Chicago the other night, and we even saw that in little spurts against Minnesota last night. Even though, yes, there was some things that were left to be desired, but at the end of the day, I thought there was more positivity than negativity that came out of this game. I think, as well as Elliott played in this game, I think if we had the scheduled starter and Vasilevsky and net, if he was healthy and, obviously, it wasn't sick or anything, it was 100% ready to go. I, th- I'm inclined to believe that this game would have resulted in a different way, and I think that we might see that. Hopefully, I haven't heard anything about Vasilevsky just yet. I would imagine maybe he just had some sort of cold. Uh, Hopefully, it's not something that is going to be keep him out for Friday's game, because this game against the Jets on Friday, I think I've really been looking forward to it, because you know anytime you want to see Vasilevsky measure up against one of the other top goaltenders in the league, that's really a treat, not only as a Lightning fan but as a hockey fan. So, and you get to see how guys like Nikita Kucherov, how Brayden Point, those guys who have been having phenomenal seasons, especially Point, who, like I said, I firmly believe is in the Hart Trophy conversation. You want to see what he could do in the opportunities that are afforded him against a top goaltender like Connor Hellebuck. So hopefully we get to see both those guys on Friday night. If not, if Vasilevsky is unable to go, then Elliott will have to man down the fort, hold down the fort until Vasilevsky comes back. I mean, I would be very shocked. Um, and I'm not going to speculate as to what could be ailing him. But I think that since we haven't heard anything that could potentially keep him out of Friday's game right now at the moment of this recording, I think that's a good news. I think that's positive news, that we should see him on Friday and definitely on Monday against Columbus, and even Vancouver. I think now, and one of our listeners, um, off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure, but one of our listeners brought up a good point that this is the time of the season where John Cooper should really start to let Vasilevsky loose. And I 100% agree with that. I think that he wanted to allow Vasilevsky to ease into the NHL season, especially after the amount of games that he played last year. And so we're going to start to see that through this month of January and potentially February as well. Like I said on previous episodes, very crucial games coming up, especially in this month of January, especially coming out of a very successful month of December. So very excited for this. A little bit of a hiccup here in the road as the Lightning continue to play hot and play very good hockey, as while we continue to see Nikita Kucherov solidify himself as one of the top point scorers in the league, and we start to see uh Brayden Point continue, not even start, but we continue to see him make the case for himself being in the top 5 of NHL players. So really excited to see how these next couple of games unfold. And as always, please like and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're available wherever podcasts are. So that's Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, wherever you can listen to a podcast. We're there. And always remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that thumbs up button, hit that notification bell, and drop a comment below. How are you feeling about this Lightning game? Are you as optimistic as I am? I saw a lot of good things. I saw a lot of fight out of this team. I didn't see a team that all at any point was panicked throughout the course of this game. Because look, I'm not going to sit here and say that this was more of a matter of a game where the Lightning were off, because they simply just weren't. They were playing well. It was just a matter of the fact that the Wild just happened to be the better team last night. So that's it. And when you look at the way that Point and Kucherov are playing, it's very encouraging because, like I said, when those two guys are on, the rest of this team plays well, and you're gonna continue to see production like you've seen, like I spoke about in the last episode, from guys like Alex Killorn. You're gonna see Stamkos start to pick things up again. Hopefully, we could see Ross Colton kind of just figure it out. I'm starting to see more and more frustration out there from him. Ross is very talented scorer, and I think it's just a matter of him just slowing the game down and taking it shift by shift. So hopefully we could get Ross Colton going in the month of January. So we'll be back tomorrow to talk about the Jets game, and Friday night we'll recap that game, or we'll talk about some other stuff surrounding this team as well. So keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Tanker. I'll talk to you next one.